I am here to tell you a story. These are the things that we are afraid to talk about, the things that we avoid, the things we resent, the things we repress. We are all shattered by our past in one way or another, and you shouldn't be ashamed because that's what makes you human. That there are parts of our stories that we like and parts that we don't, and that's okay. We consume all these thoughts, this information, these numbers and equations, dates and names, but we do not choose which remain in our brains. I've been walking on my tiptoes, trying to avoid the question about why I came here my junior year, because my answer was always, my old school just wasn't right. So why did I come here? I am here to tell you that you are not what you are called, but what you call yourself. I am not here to tell you a story of great achievement. I am here to tell you what lies beneath my bones, but what shows on my skin. I was 6, unaware of the fact that my body would ever be the destroyer of itself, unaware that my hands would one day cause my heavy burdens, unaware that my hair or my clothes or my smile would become those striving for perfection, or whatever perfect is, because too many times the words confidence and beauty are mistaken for conceited and bitch, as if feeling beautiful is a problem, when in reality, the problem is the people who think they're not. Like saying, I'm having an awesome hair day today, and other people are always going to be like, oh, so you agree, you think you're really pretty. Don't be ashamed to say you look pretty today. You do. I was 9 when he pulled that chair out from under me before I sat down. I hit the floor and squished my little eyes shut to hear you missed your seat, ugly. And I stood up and used all the strength in my little heart, and I poured his water all over his head. I got sent to the principal's office. I was 12, entering the middle school under the invisibility of being a nobody. Convinced I was going to find new friends because I wasn't popular enough for my old ones. But that's before I really knew what popularity was going to mean. I was 13, sobbing because of all the bull about finding new friends was failing. I thought no one wants to be with the ugly, quiet girl. I was 13. I was naive that I was not what I was labeled when harsh words were used like overplayed songs on the radio. I was 14 going into high school as the freshman with the afro curly hair. I bet you wouldn't guess that. Who was teased and poked and prodded until I took the 400-degree heat and I ironed it straight. I was 15 when people began to notice me. And I'm not going to pretend like I do not hear these things. People say pretty like people throw around love. I never believed either. Because who was I to believe it when I was only ever called ugly? Does this really make a difference? And of course, this led to the excessive and appalling remarks of bitch, slut, whore being thrown at me behind my back as if I wouldn't hear it. And I just went with it. And it eventually turned into she's hot. And a lot of times it really felt like a slap in the face to feel like that was the only thing that I was ever seen for, that that was the first thing someone would ever say about me. And I'd like to think that there's a lot more to me than just the outside. But it didn't seem like anyone was ever willing to figure that out, to take the chance. Labeled and judged before I even set foot in my first A-block Spanish class last year. The insults and words were the only things I began to swallow. I skipped lunch to avoid hearing it. And words are incredibly powerful things, and words hurt because names hurt just as much as sticks and stones. And this was the first time my shaking hands quivered under the pressure, and my head beat to the sound of my heart, and my tears stung my self-inflicted wounds on the arms of pale skin, piercing through the bony limbs of my 15-year-old body. I hid under long sleeves and hoodies that showed that my hip bones that were now baggy, my jeans were now baggy at the knees, and I was 15 pounds down on my 16th birthday. And I met a few girls around then, tangled in sleepless nights and mindless mistakes, until we found each other under the fluorescent lights of the cafeteria, all too similar to those of hospitals. And I'd like to think that it could have stayed, but things change and people change. And I fell in love with the pain because everyone seemed to be fine with me in it. I couldn't hold my ground because all I wanted to be was beneath it. I trusted those who would cut open the deepest parts of me, but I forgot to trust myself. Sitting on the bedroom floor, for hours on end, I lost my mind, watching the bloodstained water wash down the drain. With glassy eyes through the foggy halls, I thought to myself, I give up. And these are the things that we don't want to talk about, because they forgot to teach us about this in health class, that depression isn't just sadness and it can't be fixed with get over it. They forgot to teach us that these thoughts happen and that they can happen to us, and that you're not crazy or messed up or at fault if it happens to you. If you think these thoughts, know that it is not a sign of weakness to ask for help, and that needing other people is okay. But what I did is I just placed a mask on my battered shell when I should have asked for help, and I wanted my story to end, but it didn't. I was 16 when I came here and my scars took over my arms, and I was all too familiar with the dirty hands of ungrateful boys that didn't know the difference between yes and no and everything in between. Girls hugging toilet seats with faded eyes and jagged cheekbones being played by their minds. This happens, and it happens all around us. I'm looking to tell you that there is more than meets the eye. The person you envy could hate who they are, and maybe they just need a hand, because I'm not alone in this. And I know that there is someone else with scars, maybe not on their arms or on their legs, but on their heart. And you need to know that we are all living stories, and no one can be the hero but yourself. Because who is anyone else to tell you that you are not strong, that you are not worth it, that you are not important? And on those days when you want it all to end and you think that this will be your last breath, remember that you are important to those you have met and those you will. Life has a crazy way of throwing punches, but you gotta believe that on dark and stormy days, somewhere it's glowing. Imagine that children, teens, and adults are feeling this way about themselves at 8, 13, 18 years old. Your friends, your sons, your daughters, your parents, this is real, and we can't hide from it. We can't ignore it and shove it under the carpet, only to find that as time passes, the carpet loses its color. Never lose your spectrum of colors. And it took me a long time to realize this, that all I needed was to be comfortable in my own skin, no matter which battle showed through. I recognized that it is okay to feel good about myself. And I surrounded myself with the people that make me smile, because with that, I could keep going. I'm 18, and I need to believe that there will be a year where I could look back and say there were days where I was happier more than not. And I'm happy you guys are all here. And some of us may not know each other, and some of us may not be on good terms, and some of us might be. But you're all here. Like, look around. You're all alive. And you should never be ashamed of your life, or who you have been, or who you are right now. Believe that your story isn't over. Breathe. And change that period to a semicolon and keep writing your story. Thank you.
Over 100 people die every minute in this world. This means there are about 6,000 deaths an hour, 150,000 deaths a day, and 56 million deaths yearly. 56 million people die each year, and until it happens, we almost never think about someone close to us dying. How could we imagine that one of them might be one of our brothers or sisters? 4 years ago, I started at Black, just like any other freshman, thrown into a place where none of us knew each other, away from home, away from our families. On the second weekend here, I packed my bag for the freshman retreat. The moment that sticks out from that experience was a brief talk I had with Mr. Moore, in which I tried to convince him to repel the rock wall with our group. My words must have affected him, as he put the harness on, and joined the rest of us at the precipice and conquered the wall. On the evening we returned from the freshman retreat, however, my world was turned upside down. Late that night, I received a phone call that my older brother Tyler had just been arrested for possession of drugs. After getting arrested, he decided to go to rehab. Little did I know at the time, but over my years of Blair, Tyler would spend a lot more time in rehab. His first stint was only successful for a brief amount of time. About midway through the year, old habits returned, except this time, he started using harder drugs. By the time I came home for summer break, my brother had started using heroin. That summer, Tyler was sent to prison for DUI. When he got out, he moved about an hour and a half away from the family. We went to visit him at least once a month, but we were often left unsure about whether he was doing better or worse. When I returned to Blair for my sophomore year, everything went as planned until about Thanksgiving. That was when I received another concerning phone call that Tyler had been taken to the hospital because he had because things were going all right here didn't mean things were okay outside the Blair bubble. Again, he went back to rehab, only to quit after about a month. Which did not surprise me at the time, because it was just about Christmas, and I knew that he would want to spend Christmas time with the family. But he did not show up on Christmas Day. No one in my family knows where he was or what he did that day. But we all had to move past it, and I had to come back to Blair. It felt like my family and I were going in circles with Tyler. He seemed to go through spurts. Sometimes he was completely healthy, and sometimes the drugs controlled his life. Throughout it all, however, he came to me with his problems because I never judged him. He knew that I believed in him and would always support him. I always thought Tyler would turn it around. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse when my mother, sister, and I visited over March break. We found him in bad shape, almost unable to speak and fighting what was either severe withdrawal or bad overdose. My mom and sister tried to help him up and get him out of the car, but he resisted, not wanting to go to the hospital. At that time, I forced him to leave, and I talked to him one-on-one. In the 3-minute conversation we had, I convinced him to go to the hospital. This was the biggest role I played in his life. In those minutes, I told him how I looked up to him, about how I thought about him. I spoke straight from the heart to him, and it worked. So I got him into the car, and we drove to the hospital. But on the way there, he got into an argument with my sister, which undid the talk I had with him about getting help. Once we got there, I had to speak to him again. And about midway through my first sentence, he said, "Help me, I'm about to fall." From there, I grabbed him and literally carried Tyler into the emergency room. I will never forget the doctor telling me that if I had not gotten him out of the house into the hospital that day, he would have been alive come the next day. But Tyler was okay for the time being. But the next 12 months would prove to be a very tough time for my family. Just 2 months into my junior year, after our first long weekend, I got a call that another family member, my stepbrother, was just taken to the hospital and put on life support. My stepbrother Cody and I used to hang out daily before I came to Blair 2 years earlier. After I left, he started to spend time with new friends. They ended up going down a bad path together. The path, like Tyler, included drinking and drugs. One night, he and his friends went over to one of their houses, and in a drunken stupor, he took pills that ended up leaving him unconscious and unable to wake up on his own the next morning. An ambulance rushed to get him the next day, and when my stepdad got the call to meet them, it was already too late. Cody had suffered severe brain damage and was in a coma. Even if he had awoken, he would have been a vegetable for the rest of his life, relying on others to take care of him 24/7. After about 3 days of going through the motions at Blair, I was lucky enough to have Mr. Danhoff drive me to the hospital where I met up with my family and got to see Cody. I remember him looking so peaceful lying there, but he was surrounded by technology that was keeping him alive. Over the next month, we would regularly go visit just to be in his presence. We knew he didn't have much time left. When he was on life support, I felt as if we were just delaying the inevitable. When we finally took him off life support, his body fought hard to stay alive, lasting over 8 hours. We were all there at his last moment, when his body finally gave up. His death really turned a corner in my life that I would never be able to go back to. We all know that everyone dies. Life is a game where the winners and losers all end up dead. But you never want to see an 18-year-old laying in a casket as over 200 people come to pay respect to him and my family. Understandably, the year had been extremely rough on everyone in my family, especially Tyler, because he was the one who introduced Cody to those friends. The guilt really weighed on him. Eventually, things seemed to go back to as normal as possible. I finished my junior year and was excited for summer, and it started off great. I was working and spending a lot of time with family and friends. I had just gotten back from wrestling in North Dakota, and on the 25th of July, I got my tattoo and honored my stepbrother. It we could seize the day tomorrow was promised. My family went to the beach that weekend, but I stayed home because I wasn't allowed out in the sun or in the water with my fresh tattoo. 3 days later, while I was out with a few friends around midnight, some instinct I had told me to try to call Tyler, and I did. I tried multiple times, but was unable to get a hold of him. At 6 a.m. the next morning, I was woken by a phone call. I heard my mother's voice. She informed me that Tyler had died from a drug overdose the night before. His death had just occurred a little bit after I tried to call him. As tired as I was, this instantly woke me up. But before I could even process the idea that my brother passed away, I blurted out, "Are you okay? I love you, Mom. We are going to get through this." In that moment, even as badly as I was hurt from the loss of Tyler, I knew that my mother would always be hurt worse by the loss of her son. And I knew that I had to be strong for her. I just wanted her to feel okay again. We all know that everyone dies. 56 million people each year. In a period of 8 months, 2 of them are my brothers. This is not a cautionary tale. It is just my family's reality. And if there's any message I'm trying to say here, is that you just have to keep moving forward. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life. There will always be people there to help you keep moving forward. We all have rough days where we don't want to do anything. You just need to push through those problems, and things will get better. We will all find ourselves at a precipice one day. And the best you can do is try to conquer the wall. Thank you.
I am Fatah, Thai scholar. Have you ever seen a Thai scholar try to act like a black top American guy as Pitt in the Quentin Tarantino's movie Pulp Fiction? That passage I got memorized. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is set on our side by the iniquity of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherd the weak through the valley of darkness. For he is truly his brother keeper and divider of lost prudence. And I will strike down on thee with great vengeance and furious anger, those who attempt to poison and destroy my brother. And you know I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you. This is not the fight word, right? It's just because the most difficult moment since I came to Black Academy was not the moment that I had to solve Mr. Cross calculus problems. It was not the moment that I had to solve Dr. Sayer legendary exams, but it was just the moment that I had to communicate with people in English. At the beginning of this year, I did not understand what other people taught me. So I just guessed from their gestures. I responded to some basic words, such as, hi, yes, no, okay. I could not speak as a sentence. For example, my English is not good, can you speak slower? Can you say it again? Or even, I don't understand what you are talking about. And you know the feeling that I don't understand what other people talk to me. But I cannot tell them that I don't understand. And I remember one of the most awkward moments in my life was when Dr. Sayer told me the class was changed from B blocks to E blocks on Wednesday. But I did not understand it. So I looked at the schedule. Yeah, the class was in B blocks. And throughout my life, I have never missed any class without having a reasonable excuse. But on that day, I'm the only person who missed the class. And I feel so guilty, but I didn't know what I had to do or how could I tell Dr. Sayer. I tried to arrange sentences on a paper like, I'm sorry, Dr. Sayer, I missed your class because I didn't know that the class was cheap on that day. And with his calmness and his formidable personality, he told me something in an incomprehensible language. I took on the class and asked him to stop doing it. I was stunned. And I thought, how could I not do it again? Because it was not a problem of my responsibility. I had never been late or missed any class, but it was a problem of my communication that I had really no idea what they are talking about. So during the first month here, I felt so depressed. Listening and trying to speak English all the time made me feel homesick. I started asking myself, why did I have to come here? Why did I have to struggle here? Why didn't I just study in Thailand and work in Thailand? I did not need to come across the language barrier. And finally, I cried. And at that moment, I believed that no one could cheer me up. But in the next few months here, I found that Black community was really amazing. Because even if other people knew that my communicative skill was really poor, but they tried to come and talk to me. They tried to make me get used to English language. And when I spoke, they tried to understand me even if I said something wrong. Like one time we went to the health center. I walked right up to the nurse and told her that I think it's time for me to take the pill. Like this through many amazing experiences. And here I could communicate with other people very well. And within these last 3 months, I had many chances to talk with other Thai scholars from many different high schools in the United States. And I found that no one among our Thai scholars had better opportunities than I had here. I was a Black player in the no score play by Birdie in the last winter term. I received very great care from all Black members. I could get access to all Black faculties on this campus very easily. We have a very great college counselor. We have very generous and helpful advisor. We have one of the most genius head of science departments in the United States. We have many new teachers but very enthusiastic. and many other people is very good, but I don't mention here. So now I can proudly say that I made a right decision, not just to come to the United States, but to become the first hiking scholar at Bly Academy. And I feel like I am the top of the world now